Hello, friends, and welcome back to the new episode of r/IDontWorkHereLady. We have a couple more great news stories waiting for us today, and I'll tell you what, the best way to communicate with people is to throw an apple at someone, at least for Karen from our first story. Entitled Karen throws an apple at me, gets kicked out. This story begins when I, 20-year-old male, was shopping at my local grocery store. I'm just minding my own business when I hear someone over my shoulder ranting about how soft the apples on display were. I turn around and I see a lady right in front of me fuming. For the purposes of this story, she'll be known as Karen and myself as me, and the helpful employee as he. Karen: "Excuse me, do you know where I can find some better apples? I felt all these apples and they're all soft." At first I thought to myself, why are you even touching all the food during a pandemic? Little did I know the worst was yet to come. "I'm sorry," I tell her, "I don't work here." "Well, you're wearing a mask. All the workers are wearing a mask." This is a good spot to mention I live in a very conservative town, where people, especially the older ones, haven't been social distancing much or wearing masks, and sure enough, this lady was no exception. Me. "I'm telling you, I don't work here. Now, please leave me alone." "Where's your manager? I'm personally going to have you fired for this." At this point, I'd had enough and began to walk away. That was until I felt something hard hit my shoulder. This lady just threw one of the apples at me. "Did you just throw that at me?" I asked. "Well, you weren't listening to me, so I had to take matters into my own hands." At this point, an actual employee walks over and sees the commotion and asks what's going on. "Your employee here is being very unhelpful, and I'd like to speak to a manager about it immediately." What she didn't know is that this helpful employee saw the whole thing and isn't buying a word of what Karen is saying. "Ma'am, I saw the whole thing, and I'm going to have to ask you to leave the store now." "What do you mean? I haven't done anything." It takes the employee threatening to call the police before Karen finally gets the message and leaves the store. The employee apologizes profusely and says this isn't the first time he's dealt with that same woman, and if she does it again, he's going to call the cops for real. After that, I just continued with my shopping like nothing had happened and was just trying to forget about it. Looking back, I wished I would have said something sassy to the lady as she was leaving, but honestly, I was just too much in shock of what happened to do anything. I'm not cleaning that. I went to Home Depot last Saturday for some boards, and while there, an older man stopped me to ask for some help getting boards. I happily obliged, and after he asked where the liquid nails were, not thinking anything of it, I told him what aisle it was down. I do a lot of home improvement, so I got the place pretty well down. Later, I was near the paint section, and I heard a loud thud. Being the inquisitive type, I looked over to see the same old man with paint half up his pants and the rest of a fallen can on the floor. He angrily shouted at me to help him out. "Well, I don't want to get paint on me," I tell him. He replied with, "Does it look like I give a F?" A little annoyed and scared, I started to walk away. He started to chase me down. "You're getting paid to help people out." As I run away, I yell, "No, I don't work here. I don't care about your break. Dude, WTF." Eventually, an actual worker shows up trying to calm down the man and stop him from getting paint everywhere. "This B-turd was no help to me and caused this mess. You should fire him immediately." The employee looks at me for a second and says, "He doesn't work here." The guy just blew up. "He helped me earlier and pointed me down an aisle. Of course he works here." The employee had obviously given up on the situation and turned to me. "Sorry, you're fired." Me. "Freedom!" As I ran back to my stuff. The employee found me at the checkout and apologized for the situation, but I brushed it off by telling her I got a pretty big kick out of it. Smart but me deals with a rude Karen. So as a preface, I may have shared this story here before, a while back. I don't remember if I did, but it's kind of funny, so I figured I'd share it anyway. Another thing you need to know is I have some severe anxiety issues, but this story happened maybe 6 or 7 years ago before I developed the problem. So I was a bit more brazen back then. Anyway, I was shopping at the Big Blue store, famous for their selection of Karens, when I passed by this sweet little old lady. She asked me to grab a case of soda off the top shelf. It's nothing new. I'm 6'6", and people ask me to do a lot of stuff like this. I also live by the golden rule you're taught as a child. Treat those how you want to be treated. I got the soda for the sweet old lady and asked her if she needed any more help. She declined and thanked me, so I started to walk away to grab the other things on my list. As I was walking down the aisle, looking at my list, trying to decide where I should head next, I heard 2 words shouted at presumably me. "You, boy!" I look up and see this abomination of a Karen sneering at me. She had the classic haircut, probably weighed more than me as an already overweight super tall giant, in leopard print leggings, and a shirt that was being tortured by being worn by someone that was most likely 3 sizes too big for it. She'd only said 2 words, and I already didn't like her. Remember how I said I live by the golden rule? Well, that works both ways, and since she was rude out of the gate, that must mean she wants to be treated rudely also. I just wasn't exactly sure how to be rude to her yet. "Get that soda off the top shelf for me now! I'm in a hurry!" she said to me while her volume was turned up to 11. So I said as a smart butt, "I don't work here. If you want me to help you, I'm going to need to hear a please first." She shrieked, "Obviously you work here. I just saw you help that other bee." Wow, just wow. She insulted that sweet little old lady after being rude to me. Then I decided what I would do, based entirely off of what would be the funniest thing to do. "Oh, I'm sorry about that. Which soda did you want again?" She pointed aggressively at a case of Fresca on the very top shelf. I grabbed the case off the shelf and went to hand it to her. She muttered, "Finally." Right before she grabbed it from me, I quickly put it back on the top shelf and, without looking at her, slowly walked away to do the rest of my shopping. She shrieked a bit about finding my manager and getting me fired, but I was just giggling to myself. I ended up taking my sweet time shopping, hoping she would show up with a manager just so she would embarrass herself more. But I never saw her again. I wonder how her family reacted to hearing the story of the rude idiot Walmart employee she encountered that day. Replacement manager thinks I'm not a worker at a restaurant and calls the cops. I'm currently 17 at the time and was 17 at the time of the story. I have a baby face and voice. I shaved my mustache. It looked bad on me, so I look even more like a kid. The owner got sick from the flu. This was before Corona, and I got a replacement manager to work. I'm using a throwaway so I don't get my restaurant tracked. It's a family-owned restaurant, so there's only one of its kind. Cast. OP, you know this. M, replacement manager. O, owner. W, 1 to 3 are workers. C, 1 to 2 are cops. Now time for the story. I was on my way to work. My boss, the owner, called me the day before to tell me he was sick and had hired a replacement manager to fill in for him. I didn't change because I just left school and didn't have time to change. I walk in and immediately spot him, go over to greet him, and he says for me to follow him. He leads me to a table and tells me to take a seat. The conversation goes as follows. OP. Sir, I work here. M. No, you don't. You're too young to work here. Now that I think about it, where are your parents? OP. I'm 17. I'm old enough to drive myself to work. I don't need my parents to come. I have my ID if you want it. M. Looking smug. Show me. I slam my military ID, my parents are in the military, driver's license, and state ID on the table, all up to date, and they all look like my current self. OP. There. M. Look, kid, I may have underestimated your age, but you obviously don't work here. Now tell me what you want to drink or go on your way. Go get a worker and ask them if they know me. There are only 3 workers in the building at the time, and we have close friendships. Nope, that's a waste of time. Get out of my restaurant. I spot W1 and call her over. Hey, W1, can you explain to our manager that I actually work here? What? What's going on? This is your friend. You don't work here. You're just trying to rob this place, and I'm going to call the cops if you don't leave immediately. W1 gestures over to W2 and W3 to come over. After they all explain to the manager that I work there, he just walks away. I thought that was the end of the story. But oh boy, there's more. So I was serving a couple. They were actually nice and respectful, unlike the Karen in my other story, when I see 2 cops walk in. I take the couple's order and go to greet them and ask if they need anything. M gets there first. When I got there, the conversation was already going, but here's what I heard. M. And I need him out of here. OP. Hey, what's going on? C1. Is this the person you're talking about? I'm visibly confused. Yes, arrest him now. Sir, do you work here? Yes, I don't know what the problem is. The manager's saying that you're a fake worker taking advantage of him being new and trying to rob this place. No, I do work here. You can ask all the other workers and even the owner himself. They ask all of the workers if I work there, and they all say yes. The two cops yell at M for a little bit for wasting their time, and I got a free milkshake from M himself. Nothing happened after that. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video to the end, and I'll see you in the next one.